Welcome to NHK Newsline. I'm Gino Tani. The Tokyo Olympics are in full swing, with the first gold medal being awarded during a day of action featuring badminton, archery, judo, and other sports. The first Olympics gold has gone to China's Qian for shooting the women's 10-meter air rifle. In swimming, an athlete of the Refugee Olympics is racing in the women's 100-meter butterfly. Yusula Marabini from Syria is entering her second Olympics following her previous appearance in Rio. In Taekwondo, the refugee competitor Dina Pudi Unes from Iran meets an opponent from China. And an athlete from Myanmar will compete in the men's 10-meter air pistol. Naun Yentun is one of 3 athletes representing the country. Day 2 also features tennis superstar Novak Djokovic, who has won 3 Grand Slams this year in Australia, France, and Wimbledon. The homegrown sport of judo is bringing the spotlight to the host country through medal hopeful Takato Naohisa in the men's 60-kilogram race. Takato took bronze for Japan at Rio. And in the women's 48-kilogram class, Tonaki Funa will compete elsewhere. 3x3 basketball is making its Olympic debut. Some of the pool rounds have already been held. NHK World's Raja Pradhan is in Tokyo's Bay Area, where many of their venues are held. Raja, what can you tell us from your view there?
Hi, Gene. I'm in Daiba, about half an hour by car from the National Stadium, where the opening ceremony was held just last night. Now, this area hosts a number of venues, including the park for 3x3 basketball, which started just a couple of hours ago. If you can take a look over here, this is the venue. It's that white open-air tent, which can seat just over 7,000 fans. But of course, there's nobody there because of the pandemic measures now in place. The stadium nearby for beach volleyball is also totally empty. Well, if you can look, looking down at the streets over here, this place should have been packed with fans, but right now there's barely anyone walking outside. And now looking more to your left, this is where the triathlon venue sticks out into the bay. That's going to happen next week and will start at 6:30 in the morning to help prevent heat stroke among athletes. The Olympic Committee is also asking for people not to stand along roads during the triathlon to avoid crowding. Well, another area that was supposed to be blocked is the Olympic Cauldron, which is on a bridge to Daiba. Earlier, I went to the area to have a look, and surprisingly, it was pretty accessible. Just last week, officials said the area would be totally off limits to the public, but on Saturday, people were allowed to get within about 20 meters of the cauldron to take pictures. Still, they were being told to move along quickly and keep a distance from each other. I was able to speak to one family living nearby, and they were surprised. There wasn't a fence or a wall blocking their view of the flame, and they decided to bike here before the crowds came in. And as for the antivirus measures for the athletes here, there are tents at every venue to quarantine anyone who tests positive on site. There have been a number of cases so far, including team members from the Czech Republic and the Netherlands. So the big question is, how will athletes bring their A game to these venues despite all these restrictions and the sweltering heat? Back to you, Gene.
NHK World's Raja Pradhan, thanks. Olympics-related coronavirus cases are on the rise just one day after the opening ceremony. Organizers on Saturday said one foreign athlete tested positive. Dutch rower Finn Florijn raced in a men's single-sculls heat on Friday. The Royal Dutch Rowing Federation says he has now entered quarantine and will no longer participate. Organizers have also confirmed infections in one foreign resident of the athlete's village and 14 contractors in Japan. This brings the day's total so far to 17. Cases related to the games since July 1st now stand at 123. Health authorities in Cambodia and Iran are getting some help in their fight against the coronavirus. They received their first batches of vaccines from Japan through a fair distribution network. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen was waiting at an airport as about 300,000 doses arrived.
Cambodia has received warm support from Japan. I express my heartfelt gratitude.
Medical workers across the country have been under increasing pressure due to a surge in cases and deaths. Iran received about 1.1 million doses. Authorities there have been battling another rise in infections since June. Recently, they've been recording more than 20,000 new cases a day. Only 9% of Iranians have received at least one vaccine shot. Japan plans to send 11 million domestically produced AstraZeneca doses overseas. The vaccines will go to 15 countries. There are more signs that North Korea's stringent anti-coronavirus measures are making life increasingly tough. About 30 people believed to be foreign diplomats and their families have left the country and arrived in China. The development comes amid reports that border closures have led to acute shortages of food, medical supplies, and other essentials. The group was seen arriving by bus at the Chinese border city of Dandong on Friday. They were collected by Indonesian embassy vehicles. Indonesia's foreign ministry confirmed that its diplomats in North Korea had left the country. The ministry said it had been discussing their temporary return to Indonesia with North Korean authorities since late last year. Diplomats and other foreigners have been departing North Korea in large numbers. More than 80 Russians left in July. Pyongyang continues to say that there have been no coronavirus cases in North Korea. Xi Jinping has made his first visit to Tibet since becoming China's president. He used the trip to praise the Communist Party's role in developing the region. State-run China Central Television said Xi was there for 3 days through Friday. He was quoted as saying people's living standards have significantly improved in Tibet, adding that this justifies the Communist Party's policy in the autonomous region. The report also says he presented a plan to tighten Beijing's governance there through measures including patriotic education. Xi is the first Chinese Communist Party leader to visit Tibet since Jiang Zemin in 1990. Some Western nations accuse Beijing of violating the human rights of Tibetans. And those were the main stories for this hour. For all of us here at NHK Newsline, thanks very much for joining us.